Snow fell thick on Church Street, Old Greenwich, Connecticut, like a giant feather blanket drifting down from the pitch-black sky. It was the night of the 24th of December 2022. The temperature had dropped to 18 degrees Fahrenheit, but the air still buzzed with the distant peal of bells from street palls a few blocks away. The red brick colonial houses lining the street had gone dark early. Only the warm golden glow from wreaths on front doors and blinking LED reindeer on the rooflines remained. Olivia Harper, everyone still called her Liv, drove her stealth gray Tesla Model Y with no badges, quietly turning into the service drive of Greenwich Country Club. She deliberately chose the farthest self-park section where only a handful of employee cars and an old Ford Escape belonging to security Saturday. She killed the engine, sat for a moment and took a deep breath of the icy air slipping through the door seal. The scent of fresh pine from the massive tree in the main lobby had already crept in here. Greenwich Country Club loomed ahead like a winter palace. The white limestone main building was lit by thousands of warm gold bulbs, their reflection shimmering on the frozen lake out front. A 12-meter Norwegian spruce stood proud in the courtyard, decorated entirely with hand-blown glass ornaments from Tiffany & Co., each bauble worth at least $500. To the left stretched a line of Rolls-Royce Phantoms, Bentley Bentegas, and a few Ferrari SF90s dusted with a thin layer of snow like powdered sugar. Valet attendants in navy overcoats darted back and forth, breath fogging white. Liv zipped up her black Patagonia puffer, checked the rearview mirror one last time. Her hair was in a low ponytail, not a strand escaping her knit beanie. The dark green cashmere sweater dress from J. Crew fell past her knees, paired with tall LL Bean boots. She looked more like a high school teacher than someone about to walk into Connecticut's most expensive Christmas party. The only thing unmistakable was the oval jade ring on her right ring finger, deep green stone 14 Kelvin's white gold band, the gift her grandmother had left her before passing when Liv was 18. She twisted it gently, a sad smile tugging her lips. "Grandma, I have to put on another show." She opened the door, the wind hit her like 1,000 tiny needles. Liv pulled her scarf higher and stepped onto the 10-inch snow. Her boots left clear deep prints, steady, and even as if marking territory. Soft jazz drifted from the outdoor speakers, Norah Jones' version of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. The smell of pine, cinnamon, and hot chocolate wafted from the outdoor welcome station. A family of 4 had just climbed out of a Range Rover Autobiography. The kids squealed at the sight of the ice-carved Santa by the lamppost. Liv paused at the bottom of the granite steps, now blanketed in fresh snow. 2 stone lions flanked the entrance, red scarves around their necks, mouths holding wreaths. She took one deep breath and pushed open the heavy glass door. Warmth rushed over her, carrying the scent of smoked oak from the main fireplace and bergamot orange from diptyque candles scattered throughout the lobby. The 15-meter baccarat chandelier hung overhead, scattering 1,000 sparkling flecks across the Italian marble floor. To her right stood the second tree, smaller but trimmed entirely in 24 Kelvin's gold ornaments and Swarovski crystal. To the left was the walnut reception desk. Behind it stood Sarah, the young staffer Liv had quietly put through college. Sarah was smiling at a guest, but her eyes lit up when she spotted Liv. She opened her mouth to call Miss Harper, then Liv gave the tiniest shake of her head. Sarah pressed her lips together, nodded once, eyes shining as if to say, "I know everything." Liv kept walking, her boots leaving little wet prints on the gleaming floor. She heard loud laughter from the main hall, her father Jonathan Harper bragging about the Heritage Club waiting list, and only 3 more months. Her mother Diane's voice cut in, "This Birkin is limited edition, only 3 on the entire East Coast." Liv slipped behind the second tree, hiding in the shadows, watching her family through the glittering branches. Jonathan wore a black Tom Ford tuxedo shirt starched to a board. Diane dazzled in an Oscar de la Renta wine red gown, 3 strands of Mikimoto pearls at her throat. Her older sister Maddie stood beside them in a silver sequined Elisab, a 10-carat diamond on her left hand. Liv knew it was fake. Taylor Whitney had sold every real piece 2 years ago to cover gambling debts. The 3 of them posed in front of the Greenwich Country Club Heritage Preview Night 2022 backdrop while a Vogue photographer snapped away. Liv clenched her fists inside her coat pockets. The jade ring felt ice cold. She knew tonight wouldn't be easy. But she hadn't expected it to hurt this much. She stepped out of the shadows, boots clicking lightly on the marble like a declaration. "Merry Christmas, everyone." 3 pairs of eyes snapped to her at once. The smiles froze. Jonathan frowned. Diane's eyes widened. Maddie dropped her phone onto the red carpet. Liv stood there beneath the crystal lights and snow falling outside the windows, smiling softly, as if she'd just come home from work instead of walking into the territory she had quietly owned for the past 2 years. Snow still fell. But inside the Greenwich Country Club lobby on Christmas Eve, the temperature suddenly dropped 10 degrees. Liv stepped back out into the warmth, pushing the heavy glass door once more. The wind slapped her face like 100 thin blades. Snow fell heavier now, already covering the marble steps in a fresh white blanket. 4 floodlights illuminated the brass club logo on the granite wall, the symbol of exclusivity all of Greenwich craved. The Harper family had moved outside for check-in photos. Jonathan stood in the middle, one arm around his wife, the other holding his phone at the perfect selfie angle so the Heritage Club logo glowed behind them. Diane struck a pose, platinum blonde hair in big curls, camera flashes sparkling off her crocodile skin Himalayan Birkin. She just posted it on Instagram with the caption, "When you're finally on the Heritage waitlist." Maddie stood to the right, silver sequins glittering like a night sky, left hand raised to flaunt the 10-carat diamond. Liv knew it was cubic zirconia on white gold plate. Taylor Whitney had pawned the real jewels last year to pay divorce lawyers. 3 more months and we're officially Heritage, Jonathan boomed, voice carrying in the cold. Harold just texted, only 2 spots left before us. $250,000 initiation, not everyone can pay it in one lump sum like Dad. Diane giggled, adjusting the sea otter fur stole on her shoulders. I already reserved the private dining room tonight. Table 1 right next to the Cohens. Dr. Cohen says his daughter got into Harvard on a club scholarship. Maddie scrolled TikTok, lips curling as likes poured in. I posted the story already, hashtags number Heritage bound, number Greenwich royalty. People are going nuts. Someone even asked if I'm remarrying into the Astors. Liv walked forward, L bean boots leaving deep tracks in the fresh snow. She pulled her scarf higher, voice soft but sharp enough to cut the laughter. Merry Christmas, everyone. The 3 turned at once. Their smiles froze like they'd been doused in ice water. Jonathan scowled, eyes raking her from head to toe. J. Crew dress, Patagonia coat, 0 designer labels. Diane pursed her lips, fingers tightening on the Birkin strap. Maddie simply pretended not to hear and kept snapping photos. Liv tried one last time, smiling. I just drove over from Stamford. Roads are slick, but I didn't want to miss family dinner. Jonathan cleared his throat, voice cold as the snow. Liv, tonight is Heritage candidate preview night. Invite only. Non-members. He paused, stressing every syllable, are not allowed inside. Diane chimed in, syrupy sweet but razor sharp. Sweetie, I told you last week. Tonight is only for families who've submitted Heritage applications and been pre-approved. You don't qualify. Maddie finally turned, flashing the familiar pity smile. I get it right. This club isn't for. She paused theatrically, then continued in the tone people use with small children, people doing charity on a $50,000 salary. I don't want to make it awkward for management. Liv felt her heart squeeze. She had known this was coming, had known for years, but hearing it from her own sister still cut like a knife. I thought this was family Christmas dinner, she said quietly, breath fogging white. Mom texted me to be here at 6:30. Diane sighed theatrically. I texted that because I thought you'd understand. Honey, Greenwich Country Club has standards. People pay $35,000 a year to belong. They don't want. She glanced at the gray Tesla parked far away, economy cars in the valet line. Jonathan nodded, voice grave like a board meeting. I don't want to be harsh, but this is a huge opportunity for the family. Harper Construction is negotiating a contract with the Rothschilds. If we make Heritage, I'll have the connections to save the company. You don't want to ruin this, do you? Liv looked at her father, the man who once taught her to ride a bike on this very street, now standing here for a membership card. She looked at her mother, who once sewed doll dresses for her, now living for Instagram likes with a $15,000 bag bought on credit. She looked at her sister, who once shared a bedroom with her, now wearing fake diamonds and mocking her little sister to the world. I understand, Liv said evenly. I won't bother you anymore. Diane smiled, clearly relieved. Good girl. Why don't you hit Shake Shack in Stamford? They're open till 10. I hear they have a Christmas special, reindeer burger or something super festive. Maddie giggled, turning back to photos. Yeah, I'll tag you in my story, okay? Hashtag number sisterlove. Liv didn't answer. She turned, walked down the steps. Snow piled on her Patagonia shoulders, clung to her hair like tiny white flowers. Each step felt heavy, but she didn't cry. She had stopped crying over family a long time ago. Behind her she heard her father call out, voice suddenly anxious as another Bentley pulled up. "Hurry Diane, the Goldsteins are here. Don't let them see this." Liv kept walking. Snow filled her footprints within seconds. She didn't look back. She simply walked toward her gray Tesla, where there was no valet, no camera flashes, no one waiting, but at least it was hers. And tonight, she would go home. Alone. Like every Christmas for the past 2 years. But she had no idea that in just a few minutes everything would change forever. Liv had taken maybe 10 steps on the snowy path when the main glass door burst open with enough force to rattle the brass frame. A flood of golden light spilled out, turning the snow into a stage. "Miss Harper. Miss Harper, wait." The voice was deep, warm, and a little panicked, cutting through the freezing air. Victor Morales, general manager of Greenwich Country Club for the past 20 years, came charging out like a whirlwind. He wore a black custom suit and burgundy tie, but had forgotten his overcoat entirely. His breath came in thick white clouds, polished shoes slipping on the ice. Victor was 58, ex-military, buzz cut, gone silver, usually calm to the point of icy. But right now he looked like he'd just seen a VIP turned away at the gates of heaven. Liv stopped, turned. Snowflakes clung to her eyelashes. "Victor, it's okay. I'm fine." "It is absolutely not okay," Victor nearly shouted, voice echoing between the rows of LED-lit trees. He ran up, arms spread as if shielding her from the world. "Why on earth are you leaving?" Liv hadn't answered yet when the Harper family followed, still chuckling over Diane's Shake Shack line. Jonathan folded his arms, looking superior. "Who are you to butt into my family business?" Victor stopped in front of him, panting. He looked Jonathan in the eye, then Diane, then Maddie, his expression shifting from surprise to disbelief to something close to anger. "I'm Victor Morales, general manager of this club for the past 20 years. And I've known Miss Harper longer than any of you have been members." Diane gave a fake laugh, saccharine sweet. "She's not a member. We were just explaining the rules." Maddie added, still clutching her phone, pity voice on full blast. "Exactly, Mr. Morales. She's not on tonight's list. We don't want to make things difficult for management." Victor turned to Liv, eyes softening. "Miss Harper, please tell me they didn't just..." Liv gave the tiniest nod. "They did." Victor drew a deep breath, as if holding back something far harsher in front of guests. He faced Jonathan again. "Mr. Harper, there is no invite-only policy on Christmas Eve. Never has been. The club has been fully booked for weeks, yes, because every member in Greenwich wants to be here tonight. Not because we lock anyone out." Jonathan shrugged, smug. "We're heritage candidates. The organizer said clearly tonight is only for families who've submitted and been pre-screened. He pointed at Liv, is not on the list." Victor Morales stared at Jonathan for 3 seconds. 3 seconds that felt like a century. Then he spoke low, but every word carved in stone. "And even if there were such a policy, which there is not, Miss Olivia Harper would still be allowed in at any time on any night for any reason." Diane let out a dry laugh. "What does that mean? She does charity, 50 grand salary. You're saying we have to let some office workers sit in the private dining room with the Rothschilds?" Victor turned to Liv, eyes suddenly gentle. "Miss Harper, would you like me to explain, or would you prefer to do it yourself?" Liv shook her head slightly. "You can tell them, Victor." Victor took another breath, then looked straight at the 3 Harpers frozen on the steps. "Because Miss Olivia Harper owns the deed to this club." Silence. Silence so complete, you could hear individual snowflakes land. Jonathan opened his mouth, no sound came out. Diane's jaw dropped, the Birkin suddenly heavy as lead. Maddie, who had been smirking seconds ago, dropped her phone into the snow. The screen stayed lit, TikTok story still recording, frozen on the frame where she flaunted the fake ring. Victor continued, voice now perfectly professional but with a thin edge of satisfaction. "Miss Harper purchased Greenwich Country Club 2 years ago through Harper Real Estate Trust. She is the sole owner of this property, the golf course, the tennis courts, the marina, the stables, and every single bulb in that chandelier you were just taking selfies under." He turned to Liv, giving a small bow. "She saved 300 jobs during COVID when the previous owners were about to file Chapter 11. She has personally funded every scholarship dinner, every junior golf program, and the new pediatric wing at Greenwich Hospital that opened last month." Jonathan stammered. "That's impossible. Liv works at a non-profit." "Which she founded," Victor cut in sharp as a blade. The Harper Foundation has donated $68 million in the last 2 years. Quietly. Without ever asking for a plaque or a photo op, Diane stepped back, high heels slipping on ice. But she drives a Tesla with no badges. She lives in a 2-bedroom in Stamford. Victor smiled, his first real smile of the night. She likes her apartment. And her car. And her privacy. Maddie finally spoke, voice trembling. You're lying. This is a joke. Some kind of Christmas prank. Victor pulled out his phone, opened a PDF and held the screen toward them. At the top, Harper Real Estate Trust logo. Below, electronic signature, Olivia Harper, dated the 15th of March 2020. Final line, full ownership transfer, Greenwich Country Club, Greenwich CT. He looked at Maddie, voice, soft but icy. I don't do pranks, Mrs. Whitney. Especially not on Christmas Eve. Snow kept falling. But on the marble steps of Greenwich Country Club the world seemed to stop spinning. Jonathan Harper was the first to break the deadly silence. He stepped forward, polished shoes slipping slightly, voice hoarse like someone had choked him. You. What owns it? This is a Christmas joke, right? Liv looked at her father, eyes calm. Snow still fell, piling on her low ponytail. She didn't rush to answer. She simply brushed snow off her Patagonia shoulders, then turned to Victor. Victor, can you give me a minute? I want to tell them myself. Victor nodded, instantly stepping back 2 paces but staying close enough to protect her if needed. He knew Liv, she hated anyone speaking for her even when it was the truth. Liv drew a deep breath, breath fogging thick in the 18-degree air. She looked each of them in the eye, father, mother, sister, one by one. Not a joke. Greenwich Country Club has belonged to Harper Real Estate Trust since the 15th of March 2020, I signed. Alone. Diane let out a dry, disbelieving laugh, but no one joined her. She clutched the Birkin like it might disappear. You. Do charity. You said 50 grand salary. You live in a 2-bedroom in Stamford. You. I didn't lie, Liv interrupted, voice steady. I do work in charity. I just never said it was my own foundation. Maddie finally picked her phone up from the snow. The TikTok story had stopped recording long ago, she stammered, but how? Where did the money come from? You. Liv smiled, her first real smile of the night. In 2015, I was 22, senior year at MIT. I dropped out to build an AI startup that detected early-stage breast cancer from mammograms. Called Lumina Health. Jonathan frowned. Lumina. I vaguely remember the name. Bought by Google, right? Acquired by Google in February 2020. Liv continued, voice light like she was talking about someone else. Gross price $118 million before taxes. After federal and Connecticut state taxes, I walked away with $92 million. Cash. Diane's mouth fell open. The Birkin slipped from her arm, landing in the snow with a soft thud. No one picked it up. Liv didn't stop. March 2020, pandemic hit. Greenwich Country Club was facing bankruptcy. The old owners, the Whitmores, owed the bank over $40 million, couldn't pay. They were going to sell the land to condo developers. 280 employees about to lose their jobs, including Victor and Sarah at the desk. Victor nodded, eyes proud. I bought it all, Liv went on. Not to show off. To keep the traditions, keep the jobs, keep the golf course, keep the free summer swim lessons for kids. I signed through Harper Real Estate Trust, a blind trust. No one knew except the board and my lawyers. Maddie took a step back, silver sequins flashing under the lights. But why? Why didn't you tell us? Why let us think you were broke? Liv looked at her sister, eyes not angry, just sad. Because I didn't want to be used. I watched you post stories flaunting fake rings, watched mom and dad take out loans for Birkins, watched the whole family laugh at me for low salary. I thought if they knew I had money they'd treat me differently. And I didn't want family love based on money. Diane started crying, mascara running in black streaks. Baby. I didn't know. I'm sorry. Liv shook her head. You don't get to be sorry now. Because 5 minutes ago you told me to go eat at Shake Shack. Jonathan tried to regain control but his voice shook. So, Harper Foundation. The one that funds scholarships for public schools. Mine, Liv answered. Founded 2020. 68 million donated so far. 14 million a year. Greenwich Hospital Pediatric Wing fully funded by me, STEM programs for kids of color in Norwalk public schools paid by me. College scholarships for children of club employees also me. No one knew because I don't need my name on a building. Victor added, voice warm. She turned down every invitation to stand on a stage. Once the mayor wanted to name a street Harper Way. She shut it down flat. Said, streets don't need billionaire names. Diane sank onto the steps, snow soaking her Oscar de la Renta gown. 68 million, while I took out a 50 grand loan for a purse. Maddie hugged herself, sobbing. I didn't know. I called my own sister a failure. Liv stepped closer to her sister, knelt to eye level. You're right, Maddie. I'm not a failure. I just didn't want to live like you, borrowing to show off, pretending to be rich to get into Heritage, sleeping with the committee chair for a membership card. I have everything you dream of, but I don't need to flaunt it. Because I know real worth isn't in labels. Jonathan stammered, so, what do you want, to kick us out on the street? Liv stood, brushed snow from her knees. No. I don't want to kick anyone out. I just wanted you to know the truth. And from now on things will be different. She turned to Victor. Victor, is the Cohen table still reserved for me? Victor smiled, bowed. Always, Miss Harper. Table 1 right by the fireplace. I'll walk you in. Liv nodded, then looked at her family one last time. You can still have dinner here, the table is booked. But from now on you pay like every other member. No discounts, no special treatment. And definitely no Heritage Club. Diane sobbed harder. Baby. I'm sorry. Liv didn't answer. She turned, walked up the steps past her family like past strangers. Victor held the glass door. Golden light poured out. Liv stepped inside, her shadow long on the marble. The door closed behind her. Snow still fell. But inside Greenwich Country Club, Christmas Eve 2022 had completely changed. And for the first time in her life, Olivia Harper no longer had to pretend. The glass door had barely shut behind Liv when Jonathan Harper's voice rang out, frantic and trembling like a drowning man spotting a life raft. Liv, honey, wait. Come have family dinner. He lunged forward, shoes skidding on ice, nearly falling. Diane chased after, Oscar de la Renta gown dragging through snow, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Maddie clutched her mother's arm like she might faint. Liv paused just inside the threshold, hand still on the cold brass handle. She turned the chandelier light behind her, making her silhouette look like a judge. 10 minutes ago, she said evenly, you told me I wasn't good enough to stand here. You told me I made 50 grand doing charity, told me to go eat at Shake Shack because it was more my speed. Now that I'm the owner, suddenly it's family again. Jonathan opened his mouth, nothing came out. He reached for her shoulder. Liv shifted slightly, dodging. Diane threw herself forward, grabbing Liv's arm with both hands, tears streaming. Baby, I was wrong, I didn't know. I just wanted what was best for the family. Come inside please, I booked table 1, the Cohens are waiting. Liv looked at her mother, eyes no longer angry, just bone tired. You wanted what was best for the family by kicking your youngest daughter out into the snow. You wanted what was best by taking out a 50 grand loan for a purse to post on Instagram. Diane choked, unable to answer. Maddie finally spoke, voice raw, tears carving clean lines through Chanel powder. Liv. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were this rich. I thought you really were a failure. I just wanted Heritage to salvage some dignity for the family. She collapsed to her knees in the snow, silver sequins ruined with mud. I've been sleeping with Henry Wadsworth, the Heritage Committee chair. He promised to approve our application if I slept with him. I had no choice. Liv Taylor cleaned us out, I have to divorce him, I have nothing left. The confession exploded like a delayed bomb. Jonathan spun to his eldest daughter, face white. Diane shrieked, hand to her chest. Madison Harper Whitney. What did you just say? Maddie sobbed harder, forehead nearly touching the snow. I didn't want to, but Henry said one more night and he'd sign. He said we were about to be blackballed because Harper Construction owes the bank 28 million. He could help extend the deadline. Liv stood motionless. She looked at her sister, the girl who had bullied her through high school, who posted fake rings on Instagram, who had just mocked her for wearing J. Crew, now kneeling in the snow gown-soaked mascara rivers. You wanted Heritage to impress your Instagram friends, Liv asked, voice soft as falling snow. Fine, but not tonight. Maddie looked up, eyes lighting with desperate hope. You mean? You'll help us? You'll get us into Heritage? Liv smiled, a smile colder than the storm. No. I mean you will never get into Heritage Club. Ever. Jonathan lunged forward, dropping to his knees beside Maddie, grabbing Liv's wrists. Honey, please. Harper Construction goes bankrupt January. Chase sent the final notice. I need Heritage connections to borrow more to save the company. You can't let me lose everything. Diane knelt, wine red gown pooling in snow. I'm begging you, Liv. I'll sell the Birkin, sell the pearls, sell everything. Just get us into Heritage, I'll do anything. The three Harpers knelt in the snow before the doors of Greenwich Country Club, like beggars before a palace. Bentleys still glided past, valets glanced over, then quickly looked away. A few members exiting whispered, then detoured. Liv looked down, eyes without pity. 3 years ago, she said, voice clear in the storm, Dad cut contact because I dropped out of MIT to start a company. Mom skipped my graduation because nothing to show off. Maddie laughed at me for low-wage charity. No one asked how I was living, what I ate, if I was okay. Now the company is collapsing and suddenly you remember you have a daughter. She gently pulled her wrists free. I don't want a family built on money. I don't want fake reconciliation. I don't want anyone kneeling to beg for Heritage membership. Jonathan stammered. So, what do you want? Liv looked him dead in the eye. I want you to take responsibility for what you've done. Dad borrowed, you pay. Maddie cheated, she faces consequences. Mom lived for like she looks in the mirror. And me. She turned, pushed the glass door. Golden warmth spilled out, haloing her face. I'm going to have Christmas dinner. With people who actually see me as family. Victor Morales waited inside, bowing respectfully. Miss Harper, the Cohen table is ready. Dr. Cohen asked if you'd like the seat by the fireplace. Liv smiled, her first genuine smile of the night. Thank you, Victor. By the fireplace sounds perfect. She stepped over the threshold. The door closed softly but firmly, leaving the three Harpers kneeling in the snow during the coldest Christmas storm they had ever known. Inside, jazz played I'll Be Home for Christmas. Liv hung her coat, handed it to staff, and walked into the glittering dining room. She was home. Her real home. The glass door closed behind Liv with a soft click, like the final gavel on the past. The dining room felt almost too warm, roaring oak fire, orange cinnamon scent from mulled wine, 200 of Greenwich's wealthiest laughing. The baccarat chandelier sparkled over hundreds of Dom Perignon flutes like liquid diamonds. Victor Morales led her down the main aisle. Every head turned. Not because Liv wore a simple J. Crew dress, but because Victor, who never left the desk more than 10 minutes in 20 years, was bowing like royalty, walked beside him. Dr. Robert Cohen, head of pediatrics at Greenwich Hospital, was the first to stand. 70 silver hair, gray custom suit. He opened his arms wide and hugged Liv tight in front of the entire room. Liv, kiddo, we thought you weren't coming, his voice warm like a real grandfather. The new pediatric wing opened last month. Did you see the sign, Harper Wing? We voted unanimous, even though you refused the ribbon cutting for the 3rd time. The whole Cohen table erupted in laughter. Mrs. Cohen, Pulitzer-winning journalist, stood and kissed both Liv's cheeks. Thank you for covering Lily Goldstein's chemo. Their family is at that table over there. Liv smiled, eyes red. I just did what Grandma taught me. Judge Eleanor Harris, first black federal judge in Connecticut, stepped up next. She hugged Liv tight, whispered, your foundation paid full-ride Yale scholarships for 12 Bridgeport kids of color last year. One just got early admission last week. She calls you her fairy godmother. More laughter. Northeast Wells Fargo's CEO David Park raised his champagne flute from afar. Liv, board meeting next week. I'm keeping my promise, another $1 million a year into Harper Foundation. Thanks for not letting another bank steal the hospital contract. Liv barely nodded thank you before a small shriek rang out from table 8. Miss Liv. An 8-year-old girl in a red velvet dress, 2 braids, Mary Janes, dashed between tables. Sophia Goldstein, last year's leukemia patient whose $1.4 million treatment Harper Foundation had paid in full. She threw herself at Liv's legs, looked up, eyes shining. Your foundation paid for my chemo last year, Dr. Cohen said. Without you, I wouldn't be home for Christmas. The entire dining room went quiet for 1 second, then burst into applause. The wave rolled across the room. Sophia's mother lifted her, Mrs. Goldstein, sobbing as she hugged Liv. We owe you her life. Liv bent and kissed the girl's forehead. I just paid the bills. You're the one who fought. Victor murmured in her ear, Miss Harper, 17 more families are waiting to thank you tonight. Liv laughed, finally relaxed. Let them come one by one. I've got all night. At that moment the glass door opened again. The Harpers stumbled in, soaked in melted snow, faces blotchy. Jonathan tried to keep his chin up, Diane dabbed mascara with a crumpled tissue, Maddie clung to her mother's arm like she might collapse. They had barely crossed the threshold when the applause still echoed. Diane froze, seeing Dr. Cohen hugging Liv. She remembered her own Facebook post in the Greenwich Moms Elite group last year. My youngest does low-wage charity, probably can't even afford a ticket to Greenwich CC. Still there, 300 likes. Now that low-wage daughter stood in the center of the dining room, hugged and thanked by Connecticut's most powerful. Diane went pale, the Birkin slipping to the carpet with a thud. Jonathan recognized David Park, the man he'd begged for 6 months for extra credit, raising a toast to Liv. Maddie spotted Sophia Goldstein, the same child she had commented under the hospital fundraiser post. Another kid sponsored just to grow up a maid right. The three stood frozen at the entrance like ghosts at a banquet of light. Liv glanced over for a second. No anger. No triumph. Just distance. She waved to Sophia. Want to sit with me? Cohen table has an empty chair. The girl squealed and ran to her. Victor quietly told security escort the Harper family to table 15. Center of the room. Exactly as reserved. Diane stammered. But we booked table 1. Victor smiled politely, cold as ice. Table 1 now belongs to Miss Harper. And those who truly deserve it. Applause rose again as Liv sat at the Cohen table. Dr. Cohen pulled out her chair, Judge Harris poured champagne, Sophia climbed into the tall chair beside her, grinning ear to ear. The Harpers were led to table 15, dead center, no corner, no screen. Every eye in the room now flicked to them, curiosity, pity, disdain. Diane sat, hands shaking as she opened the menu. She glanced at the Cohen table where Liv laughed, surrounded like a star. She realized for the first time in her life she was no longer the center of any party. And the person who had pushed her out of the spotlight was the daughter she told to go eat at Shake Shack. Snow still fell outside. But in the Greenwich Country Club dining room on Christmas Eve, 2022, only one person was truly home. The other 3 were just guests. Unwelcome guests. A spoon tapped lightly against a champagne flute from the Cohen table. Dr. Robert Cohen stood, glass raised, voice warm but loud enough for the entire dining room to hush. Before we start the main course, I want to take a moment to thank the person who turned Greenwich Country Club from just a golf club into the heart of our community. Olivia Harper, not only the quiet owner of this place but the woman who saved hundreds of children from illness, thousands of students from poverty. Tonight we are proud to sit with her. The entire room stood, thunderous applause. Over 200 people, judges, doctors, CEOs, billionaires, all faced Liv. She barely managed to humble bow, eyes red. Victor Morales stepped to the small dais by the fireplace, iPad in hand, voice carrying through the sound system. Ladies and gentlemen, a few important updates tonight. He paused, eyes sweeping to table 15 where the Harpers sat rigid as statues. Diane clutched Jonathan's hand, white-knuckled. Maddie stared at the tablecloth, eyes swollen. Victor continued, professional but sharp as a knife. First, the Harper family's Heritage Club application file H20222117 has been permanently rejected. No appeal. Reason: failure to meet ethical standards under Article 4, Section 2 of Heritage Bylaws. A collective gasp rippled like a wave. The Goldsteins turned to the Parks, whispering. Judge Harris raised an eyebrow, nodding. Jonathan shot up, chair crashing backward. You can't do that. We paid the $250,000 deposit. Victor smiled coldly. Deposit will be refunded in full Monday morning. Not a penny short. But Heritage doesn't sell memberships to those who judge others by appearances. He tapped the iPad. Second, the Harper family's 30% platinum membership discount is revoked effective immediately. Tonight's dinner will be charged at standard rate. Total $1,840 for 4 excluding tax and gratuity. Diane's jaw dropped. She had just ordered a second bottle of vintage Dom Perignon, $1.200, without realizing the discount was gone. Victor didn't pause. Third, the Harper family table remains exactly where it is, table 15, center of the dining room. No moving, no privacy screen. Transparency is a core value of Greenwich Country Club. Every eye locked on the center table. Maddie shrank, trying to hide behind a tall crystal vase. Diane furtively raised her phone to snap Liv for proof. We're still family. Hand shaking too hard, she photographed her own face instead. Victor raised his voice further. Fourth, I have directed the board to open a full investigation into the Harper family's conduct over the 10 weeks since joining. We already have 7 formal complaints from staff. Asterisk 3 times servers were berated for slow wine pours. Asterisk 2 times valets were yelled at for not opening doors fast enough. Asterisk 1 time Maddie Whitney threw a napkin in an assistant chef's face because the truffle pasta was not fancy enough. Asterisk. And most recently, Jonathan Harper tried to pressure the bartender to add extra tip to another guest's bill as payback. The room let out a collective, ooh. An elderly lady at table 3 whispered loudly enough for all I remember that he said, "Let the poor tip each other." Victor raised a hand for quiet. The investigation will conclude by the 15th of January, 2023. Any further incidents will be reported directly to the owner, Miss Olivia Harper. He turned to Liv, bowed slightly. Liv nodded back, then stood. The dining room fell pin-drop silent. She walked to the dais, no microphone needed. Her voice carried clear and natural. Thank you all for welcoming me tonight. I never wanted to stand here talking about myself. But tonight I need to say something more important. She looked straight at table 15. The Harpers shrank like spotlit criminals. I was raised to believe money defines a person. That luxury cars, designer bags, heritage membership were the measure of worth. But I learned the opposite: kindness is the only thing that never goes out of style. Applause erupted. Sophia Goldstein cheered from the Cohen table. Liv raised a hand for quiet, continued. So I propose a new policy number 5 tonight. Any member who discriminates against others based on appearance, visible wealth, or assumed income will have membership suspended immediately. No warning, no appeal. This will become Article 12 of the club bylaws. Judge Harris stood and applauded first. Then Dr. Cohen. Then David Park. Then the entire dining room. Thunderous. Victor nodded, satisfied. Ms. Harper's proposal will be voted on at the board meeting December 27. I am confident it will pass 100%. Liv stepped down, returned to the Cohen table. Sophia climbed into her lap, hugging her neck. You're awesome, Miss Liv. Dr. Cohen poured more champagne. You just changed Greenwich Country Club forever. You know that. Liv smiled, glancing at table 15. Jonathan was arguing with staff over the bill. Diane sat frozen, eyes red. Maddie stared at her plate, tearing a napkin to shreds. I just want this place to be home for kind people, Liv said softly. Not just rich ones. Victor returned to her side, whispered, Miss Harper, table 15's bill is printed. I highlighted the line, platinum discount removed. Server is on the way. Liv nodded. Thank you, Victor. And send them an extra Perrier. On the house. I don't want anyone saying I'm petty. Victor's rare smile flashed. As you wish. He walked off. 5 punishments delivered. 5 final nails in the Harper family's pride. And not a single person in the dining room, from doctor to judge, billionaire to 8-year-old, felt sorry for them. Only silence. And justice. Finally, after 2 years of silence, justice had spoken. In Olivia Harper's voice. Dinner officially began at 8:15. Table 1 by the roaring fireplace was the center of light and laughter. Liv sat between Dr. Robert Cohen and Judge Eleanor Harris, Sophia Goldstein glued to her side like a kitten. On the table, chilled Dom Perignon vintage 2012 inches silver buckets, foie gras with blueberry jam, beef Wellington that head chef Philippe presented himself. Philippe, French handlebar mustache, pristine whites, set down the last plate, then suddenly opened a velvet box. Inside, a Cartier love bracelet in 18 Kelvin's white gold with tiny diamonds. For you, Miss Harper, he said in his warm Provençal accent. Not a Christmas gift. A thank you for paying my son's full scholarship to the Culinary Institute last year. Without you, he'd still be washing dishes in Jersey. The table erupted. Liv blushed, tried to refuse, but Mrs. Cohen had already clasped it on her wrist. Wear it, sweetie. Cartier suits you better than Patagonia. Laughter roared again. Dr. Cohen told the story of almost being kicked out in 1987 for wearing jeans to dinner. Judge Harris countered with the time she presided over a Heritage member's divorce and discovered he hid money in the golf course maintenance fund. Liv laughed until tears fell the first time in years. She laughed without holding anything back. Sophia tugged her sleeve. Tell a story, Miss Liv. Liv thought, then told how she once went undercover as a server in 2021 to check service quality. Fake black wig glasses got yelled at by a member for slow wine. The member was David Park, now at the next table, turning beet red. And I still tipped her $5, he shouted. The room howled. More champagne. Third glass, fourth. Liv felt warmth from the fire, from hugs, from genuine thank yous. This was home. Not some Manhattan penthouse, not a Hamptons mansion. This. 15 meters away, table 15 sat in shadow despite the bright chandelier. The Harpers sat like forgotten statues. Diane's foie gras untouched. She held her phone, tried to snap a corner of the plate for a story captioned Family Christmas Dinner at Greenwich CC.ea. Every time she raised it, someone at a nearby table stared. Mrs. Goldstein shook her head. Mrs. Park whispered to her husband, both smirked. Diane lowered the phone, shaking. The photo was crooked, only catching a spoon. Jonathan opened the menu, closed, it opened it again. He waved over server Maya, trying for authority but sounding desperate. Miss, why is the bill $1,840? We're platinum members. Maya smiled professionally, eyes flat. Mr. Harper, your platinum discount was revoked tonight per Miss Harper's order. Here is the itemized bill. She placed the thick paper down. Bottom line bold. Platinum discount 30%, removed. Total du $1,840. Zéro plus taxe, gratuité. Jonathan flushed purple. I want to speak to the manager. Mr. Morales is occupied, Maya said lightly. But he asked me to relay that you may pay by card or wire. No installments. Diane covered her mouth, fresh tears. She looked at the Cohen table where Liv was being poured more champagne by Philippe, laughing as Sophia stuffed beef Wellington into her mouth. Maddie hadn't touched food. She stood abruptly, wobbled to the ladies' room, silver sequins streaked with tears and melted snow. She locked herself in the last stall, sat on the cold marble floor and sobbed. In the mirror, she looked pathetic, mascara, rivers, lipstick, smeared fake ring glinting under fluorescent lights. She opened Instagram, tried to delete the Heritage stories, hands shaking, accidentally went live. Her crying face filled the screen background, the luxury restroom. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. Live viewership hit 200 inches 3 minutes. Comments flooded. Asterisk. That's the Harpers. Asterisk. Heard they got blackballed from Heritage. Asterisk. The girl in J. Crew is the owner. Maddie killed the stream, but too late. Phone buzzed nonstop, friends, business, contacts, acquaintances, all asking. What is happening, Maddie? She hugged her knees, cried harder. Back in the dining room, dessert arrived. The Cohen table received a giant bûche de Noël with chocolate lettering to Liv, our Christmas angel. Philippe cut the first slice for her himself. Table 15 got 3 melting vanilla ice creams, no one touched them. Jonathan finally pulled out his credit card, hand trembling as he handed it to Maya. Run it. Diane looked at her husband, voice broken. Can we go home? Jonathan didn't answer. He just stared at the Cohen table where Liv hugged Sophia, glowing under the chandelier. He realized for the first time he was no longer the center of any story. Staff brought back the signed receipt. Jonathan stuffed it in his pocket, stood. The three silently left the table, walking through the dining room, still applauding Liv's dessert. No one looked at them. No one said goodbye. They passed through the glass doors into thick falling snow. Diane glanced back once, saw Liv's silhouette radiant among light and laughter. She cried, but no one was left to wipe her tears. The Cohen table kept talking and laughing until 11. Liv carried a sleepy Sophia on her shoulder, Cartier bracelet sparkling in candlelight. 2 worlds under one roof. 1 heaven. 1 hell. Only 15 meters of marble between them. The dining room wall clock read 10:45. Dinner had moved to coffee and cognac. Sophia dozed on Liv's lap, little Goldstein girl drawing Santa on a napkin. Doctor, Cohen told old stories. Judge Harris cackled. Firelight danced on the new Cartier bracelet. Victor Morales appeared quietly beside Liv, bending low voice for her ears only. Miss Harper, may I have a private minute? Liv gently set Sophia on the chair, followed Victor to the small corridor beside the kitchen. No foot traffic. Dim gold light, scent of gingerbread from the ovens. Victor handed her his iPad, screen glowing with an email from Chase Private Client Division, subject line screaming red. Final notice. Harper Construction LLC, foreclosure scheduled the 2nd of January 2023. Liv scanned fast. Total principal más interés, 28,400,000 dromera. Asterisk collateral Harper Construction HQ in Stamford, 3 development sites, Greenwich family home on Round Hill Road, the house she grew up in, all company shares. Final deadline 5:00 p.m. el 31 de diciembre de 2022. Asterisk. Failure to pay full seizure the 2nd of January 2023. Victor whispered, came in at 10:12 p.m. They blind copied the family's attorney. Your father doesn't know yet. Liv scrolled to the bottom. One line stopped her cold. Debt purchased and assigned to Harper Real Estate Trust, the 4th of December 2022. She opened her personal email on her phone. Another message from her private attorney dated 12/4. Subject completed. Acquisition of Harper Construction debt portfolio. Dear Miss Harper, we have successfully purchased the entire $28.4 note from J.P. Morgan Chase at 94 cents on the dollar. All rights, including foreclosure rights, now belong to Harper Real Estate Trust. Awaiting your instructions. Liv stared at the screen. She could hit send right now. One email to the lawyer, proceed with foreclosure. January 2, her parents would lose the house, the company, everything. They would be evicted from the red brick house on Round Hill Road, where she learned to ride a bike, where Grandma told bedtime stories. They would be penniless on New Year's Day. Victor stood silent, no pressure. He had worked with her 2 years, he knew she never acted in anger. Liv looked up, eyes calm. Victor, what do you think I should do? He answered softly, you once told me kindness isn't a reward for the deserving, it's a choice for those who can give it. Tonight you chose kindness for the entire club. Now it's time to choose for yourself. Liv glanced out the corridor window. Snow still fell, blanketing the parking lot. Her gray Tesla sat quietly in the farthest corner, no badges unnoticed. She remembered her grandmother's last words. You can be rich without anyone knowing. But never let money make you someone else. Liv smiled faintly, closed the iPad, handed it back. Nothing. Not tonight. Victor raised an eyebrow. No notice. No acceleration. No. She shook her head. Let them enjoy one last Christmas in their illusion. Tomorrow they'll get the email from Chase, they'll think they still have until the 31st. I won't shorten it by a single day. Victor bowed deeper. And after? Liv looked toward the dining room where laughter still drifted. After, I'll give them a chance. One. Not because they deserve it, but because I don't want to become the person they thought I was. She turned, walked back toward the light. Victor followed quietly, locking the corridor door. In the dining room, Dr. Cohen had just poured fresh cognac. Sophia woke, rubbed her eyes, called, Where's Miss Liv? Liv returned, sat, pulled the girl into her lap. Judge Harris asked everything. Okay, sweetheart. Liv smiled, raised her cognac. Better than ever. She glanced at table 15, now empty. The Harpers had slipped out unnoticed, leaving 3 cold chairs and a paid $1.840 bill. Liv sipped. Warmth spread. She held her parents' entire future in her hand and chose not to crush it. Not forgiveness. Just proof she didn't need to know she was right. True power isn't destroying your enemies. It's choosing not to become them. Snow still fell outside. But in Liv's heart, for the first time in years, Christmas Eve felt truly warm. The lobby clock read 11:20. The dining room had thinned, only a few late tables and the pianist playing Silent Night. Liv had just said goodbye to the Cohens, kissed Sophia's forehead one last time and put her Patagonia back on. She was about to slip out quietly when a deep, authoritative voice sounded behind her. Olivia, may I have a minute? Henry Wadsworth stood there 80 years old, tall and thin, silver hair, slicked back navy suit tailored on Savile Row 30 years ago, still fitting perfectly. He carried an eaglehead silver cane but walked steady as ever. Fifth-generation Wadsworth & Co. banking heir, the man who had signed the original Greenwich Country Club charter in 1901. Liv smiled. "Chairman Henry, you haven't left yet." Henry gestured to the small lounge by the secondary fireplace, just 2 leather armchairs and a nearly empty bottle of Remy Martin Louis XIII. They Saturday Victor silently poured 2 glasses, then vanished. Henry raised his, looked Liv in the eye. "First, I owe you an apology." His voice was low, steady, no hint of age. "I have been chairman of the board for 18 years. I approved the Harper application. I overlooked 7 staff complaints, thinking new members need time to adjust. I allowed them to humiliate you, the owner of this club, right outside the front door on Christmas Eve. That is my failure." Liv started to speak. Henry raised a hand. "No need to comfort me. I'm old, not blind. I saw how they looked at you, how they spoke of you. I let the club standards slip for a $250,000 deposit. I am ashamed." He set his glass down, gripped the cane tightly. "I propose we revoke their membership immediately. No further investigation. No waiting until January 15. I will sign the order morning of the 26th, and by noon on the 27th they will receive letters from council. They will never set foot here again." Liv was quiet a moment, watching the fire dance. She twisted the jade ring on her finger, Grandma's only keepsake. "Henry," she finally said, voice gentle but firm, "do you remember 2020? When the club was going under, you called me at 3 a.m., asking if there was any way to save it. I said yes, but on one condition: we never fire staff, never close the kids' playground, and never deny membership just because someone isn't rich enough." Henry nodded slowly. "I remember. Then tonight I want to keep that promise." Liv met his eyes. "Not to them, to myself." Henry frowned. "Meaning?" "Give them 1 year." Liv's voice was steady. "1 year to prove they can change. If they behave the same way, 1 insult, 1 complaint, 1 sneer, membership revoked instantly. No board vote. I sign." She smiled, a hint of mischief. "If by next Christmas they still haven't learned, then, like Mom always said, they can eat at Shake Shack for real. And this time I won't pay the bill." Henry stared, then let out a deep, raspy laugh that echoed through the lounge. "Olivia Harper, you are far kinder than I." He raised his remaining cognac, clinked her glass. "But that is exactly why all of Greenwich loves you. Not for the 92 million. Not for the foundation. Because you never let money turn you into someone else." He drank, set the glass down. "Done. 1 year. I'll put it in the minutes on the 27th. And I will personally oversee. If Jonathan Harper raises his voice to a staff member once more, I will rip up his card in front of the entire board myself." Liv laughed softly. "Thank you, Henry." Henry stood leaning on his cane, but before turning, he placed a thin hand on her shoulder, warm despite his age. "Kiddo, your grandmother would be proud. She told me back in 1998 when you were 13, Henry, save a board seat for little Olivia. She'll do big things. I kept my word." He bowed, first time in his life, to someone 50 years younger. "Merry Christmas, future chairman." Liv stood, hugged him tight. "Merry Christmas, Henry, thank you for believing." They parted at the lounge door. Henry walked to his private elevator, shadow long on the marble. Liv returned to the main lobby, retrieved her coat from Sarah. She stepped outside. Snow had stopped, leaving a thick white blanket sparkling under streetlights. Her gray Tesla stood alone in the farthest corner, untouched. Liv slid into the driver's seat, started the car seat warmers humming. She glanced back at the club one last time, the building blazing like a giant star in the Connecticut winter night. 1 year. She had given her family 1 year. Not because they deserved it, but because she wanted to prove kindness could still win, even if it had to wait. She smiled, shifted into drive, the Tesla gliding silently over fresh snow. Toward home. Her real home. The Tesla Model Y glided smoothly up I-95, headlights cutting through leftover snow on the shoulder. Liv turned on seat heaters, let Norah Jones play softly. No more baccarat chandeliers, no more Cartier bracelets, no more applause. Just her and the road home, her 7-8 square meter 2-bedroom on the 7th floor in Stamford, she had stubbornly kept for 2 years, even though she could buy the whole building. She parked in her usual basement spot, killed the engine, sat an extra minute. The scent of new leather mixed with pine from the tiny tree she had decorated last week. Liv looked at the jade ring, twisted it gently. Grandma had said, when you're tired of pretending, come home. Real home never asks you to be anyone else. She grabbed her small bag, rode the elevator. 7th floor hallway, still old worn green carpet, smell of gingerbread from Mrs. Lopez at the end. Liv opened 7B, flipped on the warm 2,700 Kelvin's lights. Just 78 square meters, but hers gray IKEA sofa, bookshelf stuffed with medical journals, and Jane Austen tiny kitchen with microwave and mini fridge, plastered with photos of Sophia Goldstein on discharge day. No Picasso, no 500 bottle wine cellar. Just a uno. 2-meter tree from Target decorated with $5 plastic balls and $10 LED lights. Liv kicked off her boots, changed into an oversized sweater, tossed the J.Crew dress into the laundry basket. She opened the freezer, pulled out a DiGiorno pepperoni pizza, same brand she ate as an MIT student. Microwave dinged after 8 minutes. Melted cheese smell filled the air. Her phone buzzed nonstop on the table. Text from Mom, Diane Harper. Liv, we need to talk. The company is going under. Your father is falling apart. You can't do this to your family. Call me now. Second text from Mom. Are you still my daughter? Text from Maddie. I'm sorry. I'll divorce Taylor. I have nothing left. Can I borrow money, just $50K for lawyers? I swear I'll pay back. Third from Maddie. You're my sister. Liv looked at the screen, thumb hovering. No anger. No more pain. Just cold clarity. She typed one line, sent to both. I believe you both showed me who you are tonight. Merry Christmas. She powered the phone off, set it face down. No blocking. No deleting. Just done. Hot pizza on a paper plate. Liv carried it to the small balcony, slid the glass door open. Cold air rushed in, but she left it. She sat on the folding chair, pulled a knit blanket over her legs, watched snow settle quietly over Stamford streets. Across the way, an old office building, CVS neon, blinking red-green. No Rolls Royces, no valets, no one knowing who she was. She bit into the pizza, cheese stretching long. Netflix suggested The Holiday, the Christmas movie she had rewatched since 2015. She hit play, volume low enough to hear Kate Winslet complaining about her ex. Liv leaned back, eyes following slow falling flakes outside. She remembered the dining room applause, Cartier Sophia's grateful eyes. She remembered her mother's face when the $1.840 bill landed. She remembered Henry Wadsworth, that's why Greenwich loves you. But here in this tiny apartment, she didn't need Greenwich's love. She didn't need Heritage 92 million or anyone's approval of her worth. She only needed herself. Liv sipped Coke from the can, no champagne, no Louis XIII. She smiled to herself. The greatest Christmas gift isn't money, isn't power. Isn't sitting at table 1 by the fireplace. She looked out at the Connecticut night sky, flakes, drifting like silent blessings. It's getting to be yourself without needing anyone's permission, not even blood. She pulled the blanket higher, let the movie run. Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas played from the TV, blending with the wind on the balcony. Liv closed her eyes. No more pretending to be rich. No more pretending to be poor. No more pretending to be the person her family wanted. Just Olivia Harper, who chose kindness over revenge, silence over bragging, a 2-bedroom over a $50 million penthouse. She drifted off in the chair, blanket tucked tight, half-eaten pizza beside her. Snow kept falling, blanketing Stamford. Tomorrow, actual Christmas Day, she would wake early, drive to Greenwich Hospital Pediatric Wing, bring gifts to kids who couldn't go home. She would not answer the phone. Would not read messages. Would not open the lawyer's email about the $28 million debt. She would simply live the way she had chosen long ago. And that was the greatest gift she gave herself. True freedom. Merry Christmas, Liv. You deserve it.